Hey guys, Casual Crono here. I've been thinking about doing my Should You Awaken series and how to organize it. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to start doing some batches of gacha characters, some batches of gacha characters that you can awaken through the Emporium, and then free characters. So in this particular batch, all four of these characters, Suzette, Melissa, Bertrand, and Ewan, you can buy their star charts in the Nopaew Emporium. If you happen to be unfamiliar with the process, when you go access the Nopaew Emporium, go down here, and this particular person sells star charts. 800 will buy you 2, and you need 3 to awaken someone. A lot of times, if you have a character, and let me see if I have any at the moment. I think Sirius might have one. Yes. So a lot of times, if you already have a 5-star character and then they announce that an older character is going to be Stellar Awakened, as long as they're 5 stars before the update that provides the star charts, you start off with 1/3. So all you need is 2 more star charts to Stellar Awaken someone. Now, you don't want to blow Allcosmos star charts on the characters that you can buy from the Emporium. So, for example, right now, Shion, Melina, Tiramisu, and Sukiya, I could go and buy 2 star charts for 800 gems. It would put me very low, but I could buy them and then turn around and Stellar Awaken them. For these 4 characters that I'm going to showcase today, I've already Stellar Awakened them, and I've gotten them all to just about level 90 and above. To kick things off, we're going to start with Suzette. Suzette's Stellar Awaken skill, actually let's go to her Stellar board, is Bolt of Bahamut. When used normally, it just does a really strong attack on all enemies. It ignores defenses, it improves critical damage, and every character who has Ancient Despair, it uses up that Ancient Despair and it increases the strength of the attack. So basically, it attacks all enemies and ignores defenses. So it's a nice damaging attack. Super important? Not really. Where it becomes more important, if she uses it in a Stellar Burst, it deploys an Awakened Wind King stance. You can do this as many times as you need during the fight. So if you need constant access to an Awakened Wind Zone, this skill becomes much more important. It still doesn't attack, still ignores defenses. It also barrier pierces, so if you need a barrier piercer, it's helpful to have. And it increases critical damage as well, still consumes all Ancient Despairs. Instead of strength times 4, it goes up to 16. And then once you use it in Stellar Burst, it puts back the Ancient Despair on all party members. So you have it basically 4 stacks again to use the next time you cast Bolt of Bahamut. Her other Stellar ability skills, at the battle start, you can stack Ancient Despairs and inflict poison and pain on all enemies. So simply by her being present at the start of a fight, you get poison and pain on everything, and it does not pay attention to resistances. So if you need to have pain and poison immediately without wasting a turn to put it on, she's good for that. Her other skills, as long as she hits an enemy's weak point, light power gets stored, and when she activates Stellar Burst, piercing resistance is reduced by 50% until the end of the turn. So it would be to your benefit to activate the Stellar Burst before you do things like an AF Burst or before you do attacks. So that is Suzette for you. Let's see her in action and then discuss how important it is to purchase and Stellar Awaken her. To showcase her Stellar skills importance, we are going to fight the Warped SD-148. So here we have my typical win team. We have Sesta, her, Suzette, we have Yifa, and we have Shani AS, Alter. So this boss is weak to wind, so that means her stellar skill, whenever she does a wind attack, will help fill up the gauge faster. He can break zones and deploy earth zones. He has a barrier as well, which Suzette doesn't care much about barriers. So anyway, when he breaks the zone though, we need an awakened zone in order for Sesta to do her max damage, her Twin Blade Wolf abilities. So that's kind of where Suzette comes in. So anyway, we're going to do that. We're going to Malediction. We're going to go ahead and Faith Sesta. And you'll notice that the enemy already has Pain and Poison on there. If I use Demonic Thrust, I will weaken him and inflict Pain and Poison for the rest of the fight. It's persistent. So that's usually my first turn with her. And here's her barrier piercing attack. You'll notice that he has now broken my wind zone. And he has 47 stacks of his barrier, and now we're in an earth zone. Well, unfortunately, I don't have a way to keep doing Twin Blade Wolf anymore because I need an awakened wind zone. So there's a few things we could do at this point. We could blow the AF gauge and try and build up Stellar so we can go ahead and redeploy a wind zone. That's probably the best thing to do right now, because otherwise we're waiting for a very long time. So we're going to go ahead during the AF gauge, we're going to Crusher Blow. At this point, we're not going to Bolt of Bahamut right now because it consumes the Ancient Despairs. I want to save it for Stellar Burst. So I'm just going to hit Dragon Assault. I'll do an Athdaucus and then an Aurora. We're not going to be doing any damage because of that barrier. And she's apparently going to be doing Hammer Slam thanks to the bind. So 1, 1, 3, and then whatever we can with her, and eventually start doing ones. 1, 1, 3. Oh, we got it back. Alright, we're trying basically just to get that Stellar Burst bar up as high as we can. On the next turn, we should be able to fill it up completely. So that means Crusher Blow, Dragon Assault. We'll go ahead and redo Athdaucus because he tried doing knockbacks with her. And apparently Hammer Slam. Alright, we have the Stellar Burst bar. So now that we can use the Stellar Burst bar, she can use Bolt of Bahamut. It's going to dispel the Earth Zone, deploy Wind Stance, and it will attack the boss and do a lot of damage because we haven't used up the Ancient Despairs. Those are those little orangish, pinkish, peach-colored circles. And in her case, if we could, we'd use that, but we're showcasing Suzette right now, so I really don't care. So she's just going to Hammer Slam. And because of the barrier pierce, she did a significant amount of damage on the boss too. We're now in an awakened wind zone again, which means on the next turn, Sesta will have back her ability to do Twin Blade Wolf. We'll go ahead and redo Demonic Thrust just to the power and intellect debuff only lasts 5 turns. We will go ahead and Aurora, and she'll Hammer Slam. Alright, the barrier is now gone. But thanks to the Awakened Zone, Sesta will get back her stacks of Divine Wolf, and she can Twin Blade Wolf again. So we'll Twin Blade Wolf, we will Dragon Assault. We're going to be knocked because that will improve Twin Blade Wolf's damage, and she'll move to the front line. Not sure how much it's going to matter. because the boss has been defeated. But as you can see, Suzette was able to replace the whatever zone was in effect, in this case the Earth Zone, with the Awakened Wind Zone, allowing Sesta to continue to do more damage. So between that, having pain on the boss right away, and being able to fill up the gauge by affecting weak points, that's pretty much, So that's pretty much kind of how she rolls with her stellar skills. So the question is, how important is it to have Suzette? Well, it really depends on who else you have access to. Sesta, if you have her, absolutely requires an Awakened Wind Zone, and other characters, Curio, etc., they can awaken a zone once per fight. Suzette can awaken it as many times as I can Stellar Burst. So if you have Sesta, Suzette's a great partner for her. She places pain, she awakens the zone as often as I need to, and we're good to go. However, if you have characters like Melody AS, she can also awaken the zone as many times as I need. So if you have Melody AS and Sesta, do you really need Suzette? Not really. It's not that important. If you do not have Melody at all, then Suzette becomes a lot more important. So then you might seriously consider awakening her. So I can't say, yes, definitely get Suzette, or no, avoid her. The answer, as you're going to find out with a lot of these characters, is it really depends on who else you have access to. But Suzette is a really good choice because being able to repeatedly awaken a zone alone is very valuable. Not that many characters can do it. Next, we're going to turn our attention to Melissa. Melissa has a stellar skill called Hornet Hail. By itself, it's a slash attack that attacks a single enemy. It inflicts crystal break, so it's good if you have other crystal damage dealers in your team. The strength is based on the user's speed, which is not unusual. Most of her skills are dependent on her speed, not her strength. If she does it in Stellar Burst, the strength is improved a whole lot. It's something like a 250% multiplier. Without Stellar Burst, with Stellar Burst, it's something like 5,000. So she does a lot more damage. It does not say anything about barrier piercing, however. It grants Lunatic on the user for 3 turns, and it also deploys the zone that matches the highest number of personalities in the front line. So if she happens to be paired with 3 fire users, then she will deploy a fire zone. If she's paired with 3 earth users, she would deploy an earth zone. So she's a little bit flexible in that regard. Now her own skills don't change, so she has crystal attacks and wind attacks. So if she deploys a fire zone, that's great for the fire users. It doesn't really help her that much. If she can Stellar Burst, in the very first turn of battle, she enters something called Destruction Mode. And Destruction Mode basically improves her speed by 150, improves all of her skills, it doubles their damage, and she can also dodge attacks based on the difference in speed between herself and the enemy, and it lasts for 2 turns. It's a little tricky to Stellar Burst right away, and if you Stellar Burst later in the fight, you don't enter Destruction Mode. It's kind of like a 1 turn or 1 chance only type of thing, as far as I'm aware. Her other stellar skills: she can activate Lunatic at the start of battle for 3 turns, which is a little bit contradictory, because if she Stellar Bursts in the first turn to enter Destruction Mode, it grants her Lunatic for 3 turns. So that part of the Stellar Burst is kind of redundant, I guess. She also will store up Shadow Power if there's 2 or more Synth Humans or KMS in the front line, so your back row characters don't count. If she activates Stellar Burst when Shadow Power is greater, then all the party's damage improves if they are able to hit a weak point, but it lasts until the end of the turn. It's basically a weak point multiplier by 1, so she has one ability that's somewhat redundant if you're able to pull off a Stellar Burst on the first turn. I don't usually party with too many synth humans or KMS allies in the front lines, so this one sometimes gets activated, sometimes it doesn't. And then if you're attacking something that has a weak point, great. If you're not, this Stellar Burst skill is kind of unimportant. So let's go ahead and see her in action with my Crystal team. I'm going to attempt to show off Destruction mode. I'm going to attack a boss that's weak to Crystal, blow the AF gauge on turn 1, and try to activate her Stellar Burst in the process. So Terra Nivium in Hosoki Forest is weak to Crystal. So we have an Awakened Crystal Zone, and we have Melissa. As I mentioned, we're going to hit the gauge and attempt to Stellar Burst during the AF gauge. So that means we're going to... we'll probably just Photon Messiah over and over again. This boss does not have that much health. It's going to die very easily. So let's do... we'll do one regular Hornet Hail. We'll do Hakam Chets over and over again. It reduces crystal resistance, so... And we will do one Refraction Bullet for the Rage, and then Luster Glare. And hopefully we can hit the AF, or we can hit the Stellar Burst gauge in the process. So 1, 1, 1, 2, and then all ones. 1, 1, 1, 2, all ones. We hit the HP stopper. Alright, there we go. So Hornet Hail. We're activating it in the first turn of battle, so she's going to enter Destruction mode. It's also going to deploy the zone that matches the highest number of personalities. Now we have an Awakened Crystal Zone. If this was a more long drawn out fight and I didn't have any zone in place, then this would place a zone. So, that is kind of helpful. We'll go ahead and... let's go ahead and Photon Messiah. And in her case, we could Kaleidoscope if we really wanted to. Who cares? This is just to show off Destruction mode. Alright, this will be a chance now to buff up the team with Promised Land, Fraction, Healing, Glint, Gale. Alright, so let's take a look at this Destruction mode. We were able to Stellar Burst. If you check out her status, she has speed 150, skill strength is doubled, and she gets that avoidance, and she has 2 turns left with it. She's still under Lunatic, so she is still doing a lot of damage thanks to it, and because all of her skills are dependent on speed, she has an extra 150 speed. So if we do, for example, Hornet Hail now, and let's just have the others Lunatic so you can just see the damage. She does a fairly significant amount of damage on her own. Her speed also caused her to go first, pretty much immediately. So the question becomes, how important is it to have Melissa? I use her in my Crystal team. She's a regular member. She has a lot of support skills and everything. But is it important to Stellar Awaken her? Hornet Hail is nice to allow yourself to deploy zones. I don't have to wait around and, like Thalil Lily, for example, she has 4 skill slots, and Benediction deploys Crystal Stance. you'll notice that Benediction is not taking up one of those 4 spots. So Little Lily has a lot of really, really good skills to use, and it's hard for me to decide which 4. So because Melissa can deploy Crystal Stance for this team whenever I Stellar Burst with her, I don't really need Benediction. Now, she does not deploy an Awaken Zone, so that is possibly an issue if you need an Awaken Zone, but this particular team, it's not necessary to have an Awaken Zone. But overall, if that's her one claim to fame, being able to deploy a zone, and not every single turn, just whenever she can Stellar Burst, which isn't very often, she's also not my main damage dealer, so Little Lily ES can do way more damage than she can. Hornet Hail's not that useful. So, does she need her Stellar? I don't feel that it's that important. But that's, again, me, and I have access to very strong characters, so I don't really need her skills that she provides. As always, it really depends on what characters you have access to, but Melissa, I would probably say not super important to Stellar Awaken her. Again, my opinion, different people's opinions differ. The next character we're going to look at is Bertrand. Bertrand is an Earth tank, and his stellar abilities, his stellar skill is Kingdom Spear. It's a pretty strong attack. It does piercing resistance. It barrier pierces, which is always nice, and it stacks 3 Iron Wall on the user. At the start of a turn, it consumes 1 Iron Wall. He gains a 50% damage barrier, and he gains type resistance, and he gains status immunity, and he restores health. So basically, if you use Kingdom Spear once every 3 turns, he has this Iron Wall effect all the time. If you use Kingdom Spear in Stellar Burst, his attack increases a huge amount, and he gains a 100% damage barrier until the end of turn, which means nothing can hurt him. There's a few superboss mechanics that, ignore those types of damage barriers and, hold grounds and stuff like that. But for the most part, for the rest of the turn, nothing's going to hurt him. So if he has a way to do cover, which is not listed here, then he will take the damage for everyone and reduce it down to nothing. As far as additional enhancements, at the start of battle, his physical and type resistance is maxed out for 1 turn. I don't know how many enemies do null type attacks, so null type attacks might still hurt him now that I'm thinking about it, thinking of Shangwa and Benedict. But for the most part, almost everything that you encounter will not be able to hurt him on the first turn only. If you have 2 Miglance Palace allies in the front line, every time he moves, you gain some light power. The issue is there aren't that many Miglance Palace allies that work well with Bertrand. Annabelle is really powerful, particularly her ES form, but she's a fire user, and he's an earth user, so it's not common that you would pair the 2 of them up. Felmina is a water user. Deirdre is an earth user, but Deirdre is not really that powerful these days. So you might, if you want to really make use of this, you might have to really look at the Miglance Palace allies. And then finally, when he does Stellar Burst, Earth resistance decreases by 50% for the end of the turn. So if you use a Stellar Burst before you do all of your actions, you gain the benefit of having Earth type resistance reduced and the rest of your team doing more damage. So those are his stellar skills. As far as importance, if he's part of an Earth team, you usually want to have some type of Earth attack in order to keep an AF gauge going. Well, without Kingdom Spear, he only has 2 actual Earth attacks. Rock Thrust, which does a very small amount of damage. It does reduce piercing and Earth type resistance, so it does kind of sort of help the rest of the team, but he's not doing much damage. And then his only other choice is Crush Lance, which is a medium level attack, and it reduces the party's MP consumption, which, unless you're having MP issues, not super important. So you're kind of If you want to use him to extend an AF burst, unless he's Stellar Awakened, those are your only choices. I used Rock Thrust for a while until I finally went ahead and awakened him. So let's check him out in action and kind of showcase his stellar skills. To showcase Bertrand, I like fighting the Shadow of the Swordsman. You have to access him through the records room. We're going to go ahead and blow the AF gauge right away, because the Shadow of the Swordsman will bind abilities. I mentioned on the first turn, right now, basically he cannot be damaged unless it's null type damage, I suppose. So turn 1, all damage to him is going to be 0. I mentioned that if he has a way to do cover, he can basically take the attacks from others and redirect it to him as well. If you have his True Manifest fight completed, his Guardian Lance skill does provide cover. His Overbear provides cover. So if we cast Overbear, he'll take everyone's attacks and reduce it down to 0. So when we blow the AF gauge, we're going to do Overbear for him. The others, we will deploy an Earth Zone, so we'll cast Charity Blend. We'll reduce slash resistance, improve damage, and he will overbear. So we're going to do all 3s, and then, depending on the time, we'll probably try to work in Guardian Lance for Rage, and then we'll try to use a Kingdom Spear. If we get the gauge going, I might use Kingdom Spear just to show you the Stellar Burst, but the Shadow of the Swordsman does have HP stoppers, so. So let's go ahead. 3, 3, 3, 3. Guardian Lance. You'll notice that all attacks are being redirected to Bertrand, and he took 0 damage from all of them. He has a counter that restores mana as well, so he's a bit of a mana battery for the team. Now the one issue that I have fighting this particular boss, he does a bind, so I can't use some of his skills to showcase them. But we'll go ahead and please, we will, we'll boost up, we'll empathy up her, and all he can do is pretty much land strike. Now Bertrand has a very high physical defense, so you'll see that he's only taking damage in the double digits and triple digits right now. Alright, we have access to 2 of our skills, so we could go ahead and overbear again. We'll attack, and how are we doing? Our prayer's gone, so we will pray again. Alright, so he's inflicted rage again. You saw that this time that he took about a 9,000 damage hit, but he can raise his own health. So that's not really an issue. Right. Speaking of which, we're going to go ahead and Guardian Lance. We will we'll go ahead and improve physical resistance, attack, and attack. And hopefully we can show off the Stellar Burst now. Yes, we can. Cool. Alright, so when we hit Stellar Burst with him and Kingdom Spear, he will Barrier Pierce and do a pretty massive amount of damage. And remember, for the rest of the turn, this boss will have a 50% reduction in Earth resistance. So now we can use the team and attack, and how are we doing? We'll deploy Earth Stance. There was the iron wall. You saw him restore his health, and a little barrier thing appeared. So we're going to go ahead and blow the AF gauge. Yes, we have access to everything. So we'll go ahead and let's see, where are we at? We have a zone. Alright, so we will please. We'll do all, let's just go ahead and do all 3s and all 2s. And she'll just please. Please. Alright, we hit the second HP stopper. So he will attack again. He will do a massive amount of damage, 13,000, but Bertrand survived. Now Bertrand's health stacking is not a result of his Stellar Awaken status. There's his Iron Wall again. Guardian Lance, if you use it over and over again, you'll notice it says his max hit points go up by 50% and it stacks. So don't think that his Stellar Awakening has anything to do with his high health. Sure, you gain a little bit of health from the nodes and a little bit of endurance, spirit, things like that, but that's not because of a Stellar Awakening. Alright, well, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So let's please show attack. He will, let's see, I think we got both of those in, so he'll attack, and we'll still do our Kingdom Spear. Remember, every 3 turns we should use it in order to stack those iron walls. If you're not sure how many he has, you can check right here. Right now he has 2 out of 3 remaining. So Kingdom Spear and all the attacks.
Not so fast.
So as you can see, for physical attacks, Bertrand does really well, knocking a lot of them down to 0, double digits, triple digits, and he can make his health very high so that when there is a very large attack, he can survive it. So, as always, the question is, should you awaken Bertrand? He is a good physical tank, and I do like his ability to recover his own health. I like his ability to restore mana to the team. However, there are much better tanks. Radius AS, for example, one of the gold standards for tanks. She is able to restore the health and mana every time she is attacked with her counter. So she is a lot better at keeping the team alive there. She has Chivalry, which can basically protect the entire team 3 times from anything. Whereas with Bertrand, you still have to make sure that he has high enough health to survive some larger attacks. So like Radius can take Fists of All Heavens from the Ukwajis, for example, whereas Bertrand would probably be beaten up pretty bad from that, if not flat out defeated. So Bertrand's a good tank. Is he the best out there? No, I think Radius AS, Soira, Shani Alter, and all of them are much better at tanking than he is. He's not really contributing much else to the team either with his stellar skills. Yeah, he can I think I misspoke during the fight. I said earth resistance by 50%. It's piercing resistance by 50%. And unless you have other characters that can pierce, which in this team we don't, then that part of his skill is completely worthless entirely. And then other things like the cover and stuff like that, you'd get just normally from his true manifest fights. You don't need his stellar skill. So the Iron Wall thing is nice. It makes it harder to kill him, and it does give him a heal. But is his stellar abilities really helping the rest of the team? It's not improving their damage. He's keeping them alive, so he's doing his job as a tank, but there's other tanks that not only keep the team alive, but also improve their damage as well. So if you don't have a strong tank at all, he's not bad. But if you do have one of the better tanks, Shani, Soira, Radius AS, you may or may not really need to Stellar Awaken him. The reason I Stellar Awakened him, I had that Earth team that you saw, go back to it, and I was using him for my Earth team, because he is an Earth user, and it just seemed to fit. So I went ahead and Stellar Awakened him. I had the gems handy. I don't regret it. He's a really good tank for the team, as you can tell. But is he necessary? Probably not really, to be perfectly honest. Unless he's with a whole team of piercers and you just don't have better tanks, then he might be worthwhile. So, again, my opinions. Everyone has their own. That's kind of my conclusions with Bertrand. Finally, for this video, I'd like to talk about Ewan. Ewan's stellar skills. He has an attack called Eruption. It's a very, very powerful attack. If he's in Vital Flame mode, it consumes all of his health. The strength is increased. He needs to have at least 8,820 health consumed for maximum damage. It removes Vital Flame, but if you use it in Stellar Burst, Vital Flame does not get removed. If you use it in Stellar Burst, he also deploys an Awakened Fire Zone, and he can do that over and over and over again after the attack, because he goes down to 1 health, but after the attack, it restores his hit points, it restores all statuses, and if he has any debuffs, it removes them. So it's a very, very powerful attack that in Stellar Burst, he can redeploy an Awakened Fire Zone as often as you want. So kind of like Suzette in that regard. His other abilities. Vital Flame mode is actually not part of his Stellar board. Vital Flame mode is just part of Ewan being Ewan. As long as you have him, you have Vital Flame mode. However, Vital Flame mode starts at the end of the turn, so one of his enhanced abilities, as long as he's in the front, he gets to have it at the start of the turn, so the start of the battle, and his damage is increased based on his maximum magic points. So he doesn't have that many magic points. My character has 646. I could give him gear to give him more magic points, but the cap is something like 1,500 mana or magic points. So to me, it's not feasible to do that. Going back to Stellar stuff. As long as there's 2 weapon allies, every time he acts, shadow power is increased, which is pretty easy to do. And when he does his Stellar Burst and shadow power overtakes the light power, damage on critical is improved until the end of the turn. Now, Vital Flame mode requires at least 3 people in the front line to be shadow characters. As long as 3 characters, in this case Ewan, Sukiya, and Iffy, are all shadow, as long as the 3 of them stay in the front line, he will be in Vital Flame mode the entire fight. If one of them gets knocked back into the reserves and I only have 2 characters, then he loses Vital Flame mode until they can move back in. So if you have Ewan, for safety purposes, you could always have all 4 characters. Like Minalka AS would be a great tank, because she would be shadow as well. Rinri Alter would be a good character. She's shadow. I just don't have them, so I only have these 3. So anyway, getting back to the whole purpose, do we want to Stellar Awaken him? He can do a really powerful attack, and he can redeploy the Awakened Fire Zone. The kind of issue with Ewan is he already has a very powerful attack. While Eruption is a powerful attack, Lava Impact, which does not require his Stellar Awakening, is an extremely powerful attack too. It reduces physical resistance, it stacks, it improves his fire type attack damage. If he's in Vital Flame, it uses up 20% of his health, and he will continue attacking with Lava Impact until his health drops below 50% or until you hit 3 attacks. Well, he does a tremendous amount of damage, and one thing I like to do is give him a piece of gear that absorbs inflicted damage. That means he heals himself back every time he attacks. And since he does ridiculous levels of damage, you'll see ridiculous levels of healing in the process. So he'll pretty much always be at max health, which is kind of nice. So that Lava Impact attack, he will continue to attack again 3 times pretty much every single time. And you'll see a lot of things like strength increases based on how much is consumed. You know, here consumes all but 1. You need at least 8,800 health consumed. You know, he hurts himself to do more damage. You know, your standard RPG for that. The magic number is about 6,500. Specifically, I believe, is... I'm looking at the wiki right now. He needs 6,563 unbuffed health or more, because when you enter Vital Flame, it doubles your health. So as long as you can reach 65, what number was that? 65, 63, you're good to go. So let's take Ewan out on a spin and see how he does. To showcase Ewan, we're going to fight the Karakuri Heart of Ro. It's a super boss that's weak to fire, and it has multiple HP stoppers, so that should give us some time to show off his Stellar Burst. You'll notice he is in Vital Flame right now. That is one of his Stellar Awakened skills, the fact that he's in Vital Flame at the start of the fight. You'll notice also, because he is in Vital Flame, his hit points have basically doubled, and you can see right now, if it was doubled, he'd be at 13,000 some. So, we are going to cast Destruction, Howling Surge, put down Pain, and we are going to do... we'll do 1 Overwhelm. We're going to go ahead and blow the AF gauge now and see if we can build up the Stellar Burst gauge. So during that time, he's going to cast Lava Impact, which will do damage to him, but then you'll see him heal himself with ridiculous levels. We're going to do Scalding Serenade to reduce fire resistance, Nocturnal Procession to boost the team's power, and Prominence Purge. And then pretty much just spam all 1s. So 1, 1, 2, 1, and then all 1s. 1, 1, 2, 1, and then all 1s. Alright, we've already hit the first HP stopper. If you watch Ewan, he's doing tremendous amounts of damage, and this is not with his Stellar skill. This is just with his normal Lava Impact with True Manifest maxed out. Alright, now we have the Stellar Burst skill ready to be used. The boss clears all of his debuffs. But now we're able to showcase his Stellar Burst skill. So remember, Eruption is his Stellar Burst. It's going to deploy an Awakened Fire Zone. He's going to take damage down to 1 health, but because we use it in a Stellar Burst, he's going to restore his health, and it's not going to remove Vital Flame. Eruption. He's going to do a lot of damage. He's going to heal himself back right there. And we've knocked the boss down to its next HP stopper. And we are now in an awakened fire zone. And every time that we can cast that in Stellar Burst, we're going to have an awakened fire zone. So now we can go back to using Lava Impact, Scalding Serenade. Doesn't really matter for her. Guess we'll redo Rosa Liliac to debuff and Overwhelm. But he's so powerful, the boss was knocked out very easily. So because of Ewan's... Whoops, that's not Ewan. Because of Ewan's stellar skills, he was in Vital Flame at the very first moment of battle. Otherwise, you have to wait a whopping 1 turn to enter Vital Flame. Because we used his stellar skill Eruption, we were able to deploy an awakened fire zone. And he was at full health afterwards, which meant he was set up very nicely on that same turn to cast his Lava Impact skill. So, the bottom line, how important is Ewan to Stellar Awaken? Is he worth spending the gems? Now, if you have like 8,000 Nopaew gems, go ahead and Stellar Awaken everyone. Why not? Ewan is a top tier damage dealer. The fact that his Stellar board gives him more health, gives him more stats, including power, gives him flat out power, makes him go up to level 100. It is nice to be able to boost his health, to boost his power, and make him an even more lethal damage dealer. So Stellar Awakening him is not a bad idea simply because of the stats and the health that you gain by going up to level 100 and from the Stellar skill board. His Stellar Awakening, being able to deploy an awakened fire zone all the time, as many times as you want, is also very, very helpful. However, Sesta having an awakened wind zone, it's required. Sesta is not, she loses damage severely if she's not in an awakened zone. I'm not aware offhand of any fire characters that have those same requirements where, they actually gain a skill under an awakened zone. So, to me, Sesta and having an awakened wind zone all the time is vital. Having an awakened fire zone is nice, but not absolutely required the way it is for Sesta. And that's just for one character, Sesta, too. So, keep that in mind. The rest of it, Vital Flame. Vital Flame, remember, it's not a Stellar Awakened skill. It's just simply part of his normal, passives. So, how badly do you need it on turn 1? Yeah. And then how badly do you need extra damage based on his mana when his mana naturally is not super high to begin with? So, this line, it's, again, nice, vital, damage on critical, 30% until end of turn, nice, And this one is kind of a given. When you have 2 weapon allies, which pretty much you're always going to have 2 weapon allies, he gains shadow power, so that one's kind of nice. So, do you need to Stellar Awaken Ewan? It's not bad. I mean, it's not vital, but as far as the 4 characters that we're talking about today, let's go back to them. Ewan, Bertrand, Melissa, and Suzette. Ewan's pretty helpful. Having the ability to awaken a fire zone as many times as you want would help in a very long, extended fight. So, bottom line, conclusions, if you will. These 4 characters. Suzette, should you Stellar Awaken? If you don't have Melody and you do have Sesta, then I would say yes, because Sesta absolutely needs an awakened wind zone, and Suzette and Melody AS are the only 2 that can guarantee it for however long the fight goes. If you have Melody AS, Suzette's kind of a, maybe would be nice, but not as vital. Melissa and Bertrand, I don't see a huge need for them. Melissa probably, kind of lower on the totem pole, so to speak. Bertrand, if you use him for tanking a lot, then if nothing else, the extra health and stats and everything would be nice. And his stellar skill certainly isn't bad, but vital, eh. And then Ewan, if he is your main damage dealer for fire, yeah, go ahead and Stellar Awaken him. He's only going to get way more powerful. You want to hit that 6,500 plus HP level to max out all of him. And if you do happen to use him, I definitely recommend something that would absorb inflicted damage, and that way that he can keep his health really, really high. So yeah, that's kind of the general conclusions as always, and I can tell you this is going to be what I'm going to say probably for all of these videos. It really depends on how often you use them and what support characters you have for them. How badly do you need an Awakened Wind Zone all the time? If you don't have Sesta, not super important unless you just have a really strong wind team otherwise. Same with Ewan. How important is it to be able to awaken a fire zone over and over and over again versus just having a regular fire zone? So, anyway, I hope this video helps you at least see how their Stellar Awaken skills work and makes you think about the characters you do have, how often do you use these particular characters, and is it worth it? It's Nopaew gems. If you have a ton of gems, go ahead and awaken them. There's no harm in it. But if you're struggling for Nopaew gems and you are really on the fence about is it worth it to drop 800 gems to awaken someone, hopefully this video gives you some insight and some things to think about. As always, hope this helps. Casual Crono, signing out.